Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future in Review podcast. I'm Berit Anderson, the COO of Future in Review, and for those of you who have never heard of us before, we run the annual FIRE conference, which The Economist has called the best technology conference in the world. The other arm of our business, Strategic News Service, provides its subscribers with the most accurate source of information about the future of technology and the global economy. So if you enjoy these updates, you can sign up for a free month of Strategic News Service using the link below. And I'm here today with Mark Anderson, the chair of FIRE and the CEO of Strategic News Service. And we're going to be talking about this year's conference, which is coming up November 6th through 9th at the Terranea Resort in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. Specifically, we're going to be talking today about some of the themes that we are exploring this year. There's some interesting ones, a lot of which have been in the news this week, unsurprisingly. But Mark, great to have you back. As always, you're a regular guest on this show. So you started the Future in Review conference about 20 years ago. I think this is our 20th conference.
Yep.
Took a teeny break for a global pandemic when it wasn't a good idea to bring a big group of people together in a closed room. And one of the hallmarks of FIRE, when I talk to people about Future in Review and what it is and what's different about it from other conferences, a lot of what I talk to them about is the action that we take as a community and the attendees of FIRE year after year coming back, working on these kind of really tough challenges together. And I'm wondering if you could start off just by telling our audience a little bit about some of the solution sets and ways that we've approached problem solving as a conference in the past.
Sure. So FIRE came from Strategic News Service after 10 years about. And the reason that FIRE, it wasn't because the world needed one more conference. It didn't. And even worse now. It was that we were doing things with SNS that hadn't been done before in the world of prediction. And what you just mentioned, predicting global events, global economic events based on technology drives. And so, okay, if that's working, then what do you do? And we thought, okay, that's a hole. That's something that's not been done in conferences. So if we did create a conference, we'd do it that way. So we did. And it immediately became clear that it wouldn't be enough just to talk about accurate predictions.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating. You want to do something about it. And that's really what FIRE became. FIRE became the arena in which to actually be active, take advantage of our abilities as a group to make very accurate predictions in how technology drives the world economy and do something about it. And there's no other conference that's even close, I don't think, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both go to a lot of tech conferences in general. You're also the founding CEO of Pattern Computer, and you speak, on behalf of Pattern many places. I've been to many tech conferences, and I think that action that we try so hard to foment and create is very unique as far as looking at the broader world, looking at technology driving changes in the global economy, and then taking advantage of those accurate predictions and using them to leverage real shifts in policy or technology or innovation that can help to solve some of those problems.
Right. So you were asking about what have you done? What have you done for me lately? Other than Pattern Computer, that was pretty cool. So we built $1 billion company on stage. This is now the best company in the world at finding patterns. We did that at FIRE. And
well, okay, so let's back up 1 second, because you're referencing something that we do every year called the Cto Design Challenge. And I think our audience for this podcast may not know much about that. We haven't talked about that yet.
Okay.
What is the Cto Design Challenge and how did it come to be?
Well, our good friend David Brin, longtime member of our tribe, probably the best known science fiction author, one of the top 5, had tried to create a TV series in New York. And I think it was not picked up, but it was really good. And so he gave us the same idea, brought it to FIRE and said, why don't you do this? And so I could lie and say that I invented it, but actually David did. And the idea was get the smartest people you can find. So it's chief technology officers in world-class tech companies, put them on stage, and then give them a problem far beyond their expectations or abilities. So it's not like, usually it's not like something you're good at. We're just
Uh-huh.
saying you're smart, and here's something that you're probably not good at, but give it a shot. And what that did for the world, I hope, is that you're getting people with very good thinking abilities to apply themselves in an unusual way, probably an objective way, not in a rut, not from doing this every day, but from the outside the box, solve this big problem in hunger or water or power or something. And so that's kind of been the basic idea of the Cto Design Challenge. And they get judged. They go away for the whole time. It's like 4 days. They work day and night, work their butts off, really, and come back almost universally with something valuable that then goes out into the world. An
So,
example, I'll give you one
mhm.
example.
Yeah.
We When wildfires and urban wildfires were just beginning, folks may recall this happened in San Diego County and burned a lot of homes. I think it was 2,000 homes, and it was terrifying. Even as of course is today. And so we had a CTO challenge about that, and it was brilliantly done. It involved all kinds of new technologies and RFID tags and multispectral satellite imaging and knowing where the fire is and is not, and looking through the smoke, and on and on and on. And all that integrated into a war room, so everything's centralized. In that one room, everything that's happening in the entire San Juan County area. And we had the top two people who were involved in that firefighting. They were both fire captains, basically, as judges. And then I think we had the county executive, and they were saying, "This is great. We love this." So they adopted it to fight fires in San Diego County. And then after that, I believe Adelaide, Australia, and Austin, Texas picked it up. So hopefully it's still being picked up by other towns. It
It
works
turns
really
out
well.
more and more towns need it, actually,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. So
Okay,
there are
so
many. Yeah.
yeah, so you mentioned so Pattern also was a product of the CTO challenge, right? So that spun out of this challenge. Can you create a new computing architecture that identifies patterns in giant data sets without any kind of human bias about how to look for them or what the outcome should be?
Well put. That's exactly right.
And
That's
now it's a unicorn, right? So
We're 7 years old, and we're building drugs to cure untreatable forms of cancer in the top 5 global cancers, and we're doing it at a rate that probably has never been done before. And we're doing other big projects at the same time.
I mean, the other cool thing about that is I don't know if we should really be publicizing this so much, but the people that were a part of that challenge, many of them wound up leaving their jobs or to become a part of that team.
True.
Because
Yeah.
they all realized what a big deal it was. And these were people at major companies. They were like executives running these incredible other projects, and suddenly it was like this was a I remember you all were on stage and you're like, wait a minute. We just realized we should turn this into a company, so we're not going to tell you this other part. And
Well,
then
we
you were,
hey, but we stopped talking after that. Yeah,
yeah.
so we were funded and staffed before we could get coffee right after that.
Hmm.
So,
All
and
right.
that's
So,
kind of right. Fire. We always fund people. We've got the fire starter program there. So we're not just like, oh, nice company I got there. It's like, can I join it? Can we fund it? Can we give you some customer help?
right.
We're doing a lot of different connecting for people to get things going.
And so we just have talked about some of the past examples of what fires or what CTO challenges have done, CTO design challenges have done. So I want to switch gears a little bit now and talk about what we're doing this year, right? I think people now have a good idea of the kinds of things that we like to do at Fire. And this year we've got some pretty deliberate focuses on a range of things, including the energy transition, how to navigate that. We've got to focus on advanced machine learning and explainability and the importance of explainability.
Mhm.
We've got to focus on chips and domestic chip production and the future of chips for artificial intelligence. We've got a big focus on the future of medical diagnostics, mental health, treating addiction, using technology in all of these cases. Is there a specific theme or idea that we're bringing to Fire this year that you are most excited about?
I like them all. I do. I like them all. Well, you've mentioned five, I guess. We probably have 20 or 30 in the
Mhm.
agenda that you can see on the website online. So this is just a large scale selection of Uber themes. Um, I love the fact that we do an advanced AI day all day long, and that we have an evening of discoveries made by pattern computer for those who are really focused on that type of technology, which is explainability. So there's a chance for someone who cares about these things, not to just hear the usual blah blah blah. GPT is great, it'll never fail, and here are your guardrails, but to actually hear from people who are not compromised financially about the question, to talk about the risks and rewards of proper use, and then what can you do now to make things not so dangerous. So there'll be a lot of different things coming out which you wouldn't normally hear clearly, um, and including new discoveries and new advances in technology. And then finally, what can you do about it? Actually have action steps. So I think that Advanced AI Day, because of all the noise today about generative AI and increasingly about explainable AI, it's going to be a very useful day for people who are trying to implement these technologies and are not sure who to believe or what to do next. That'd be my favorite, I guess.
Are there parts of that, like for those who have not been to the conference before, or maybe like aren't going to be able to make it this year, what do you think the one thing in that, like from a prediction standpoint, what would you say is one thing that people should think about when, or a lens that they could use to look at generative AI that would help them to be more successful in their career or in their business?
I didn't think you were going to say generative AI. I thought you were going in a different direction. But well, in to be very brief about this, is a deep subject, obviously, no pun intended. Generative AI makes mistakes. A paper came out yesterday saying if you don't give it proper instructions about data, up to 70% of its responses can be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A very dangerous product. And people who are trying to put this into medicine, or if they're not very careful and just limiting themselves to transcriptions, maybe they're going to risk lives. And my feeling is don't risk lives. That's a really silly thing to do. So what has been said to us, and I believe it's true, it's a pretty good quote. If someone's going to buy GAI, they'll have to have explainability.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being, if you know you've got failure in your results, you don't know where it is, you'll want to test that in a different way with a system which is explainable, meaning transparent, so that you can actually see the how and why that the system did what it did before you put it out into the marketplace or a hospital somewhere.
Right. So, so I recorded a podcast interview yesterday with one of our speakers, Marco Castellanos, who is the VP of Cognitive Services for Azure at Microsoft.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they're doing and this y'all will hear about this podcast in the future, but one of the things that they're doing that is different than other generative companies is they're actually sourcing every single thing that they put out there. So they have a source for like, where did this answer come from? It came from here. And
The data source.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is
Yeah.
getting a bit to, and that's something that they hold up as, you can actually trust our services because we are, giving you like visibility into, which is not explainable AI, but it
No,
is moving in that direction.
it is. And I think it's the right way to go. I would applaud them for doing that work. I will mention the greatest fail in the history of AI in medicine, my least favorite project. It was called Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And Watson had a lot of problems. It's no, it doesn't really exist anymore, although IBM says it does,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't. And one of the problems that came up, it was quite fascinating with regard to what you just said. Watson read the top two medical journals. Okay, that's the data source.
Uh-huh.
And Watson was a good reader. I think Watson was reading like 10,000 pages a second or something. So it absorbs all this stuff. And Watson was a neural network, just like these are neural networks. These are better. But um, it turned out about half, someone else did a study, about half, I don't know, 40 to 50% of all the papers in those data sets
Hmm.
could not be reproduced, which is a very nice way of saying they were crap.
That's not an AI problem though. That's a
That's it.
medicine problem.
So if you thought, let's say you're IBM and you thought we'll just
Mm.
have our computer read out of that data set and we'll be good to go with MD Anderson, which they tried to do, didn't work. And then you go, well, that didn't work because why? What happened there? I thought it was a Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine. Well, the problem was, as I just said, half the data was not useful. So you've got to be careful thinking that that's the only way out of the
Right.
prisoners.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's tricky.
There are limitations to any data source.
There are. And so, really, you want to make sure that you ultimately are using explainability in addition to GPT. I'm not saying don't use GPT, but also use something that's explainable.
All right, so let's talk about another major theme that we're looking at this year, which is energy.
Mhm.
We talked a bit about the CTO design challenge as a concept, um, and I think one of the themes that you and I, really everyone on our team, is very interested in uh, is how do we make the energy transition successfully, but more importantly, how do we do it as quickly as possible, right? Like,
Right.
how do we stop arguing about which technology is correct and just get on with it, with what we have
Yes.
now, with what we know we can deploy now, and with what we have the capability to put in place. And this year's CTO challenge is called, we just decided this morning, but it's called Plan A, and it's all about how do we maximize solar microgrid uh, distribution and installation around the world in the next 5 years, right? Not by 2030, not by 2040, but right now.
Hmm. That's right.
Um, do you want to talk a little bit more about why solar?
Sure. um, and before we address that directly, maybe make a plea to the audience here. Some people who are watching this will know us well and have watched us for 20 or 30 years and know that we have a very high publicly graded prediction rate. It's like 95% plus. So we work really hard to turn that art of pattern recognition into a science and apply it. And we have successfully applied it to a lot of different problems. And I'm mentioning that because here we are making a prediction, a set of predictions. And we're hoping that people will understand it's not just some idea. It's not like, well, let's kick this can around the block. It's a very intense job to get a prediction right, and you better get it right if you're going to be where we are. So um, this simple sounding idea is a result of quite a bit of work that you've done on the grid and work that I've done in other areas technically, looking at a combination of economic, technical, social, competitive, political, a lot of different simultaneous equations, all at play, including all the risks from global warming,
Right.
all at play at the same time. And, if it's hard to keep two things in mind at the same time, it's harder to keep 50. And there's probably at least 50 major threads, if not more, all meeting in this one idea. And it includes evading responsibility, buying your way out without helping the planet, putting things off, lying, cheating, wanting to help but being on the wrong path, confusing people, the usual dither, deny, and delay tobacco approach to PR of the oil companies, on and on and on and on. And it's promulgated by our conclusion together as a group, I think, that the time for dithering, denying, and delaying is way past now.
Right.
And that we are ourselves, as prediction experts, sharing our concern that those days are over and we really have to do something right now. That what we're seeing are a series of exponential changes, often with more than one thread involved, and often they're therefore interacting with each other to create even higher exponential changes, all dangerous to people, to the planet, and they're happening in ways and at rates which were completely unforeseen by scientists today. So, or most scientists today. So, this whole thing with the IPCC reports and 1.5 degrees, personally, I just reject all that. And even being afraid of high water rise, whatever ocean level, I think they missed the whole deal. And so, having come to these conclusions, it's like, oh, well, we better tell people if we really believe that. And then if we all share this view that things are happening faster by many orders of magnitude than people predicted, what can we do? And so when we bring this simplistic sounding idea to people at Fire, which we will, I'm sure they'll argue and they'll wonder why suddenly such a simple thing is being proposed when there are millions of things that are underway. And the only real answer,
Entrepreneurs all will understand it's called the MVP, right? It's like you can spend 30 years building the really complicated version of the thing without knowing if it's going to work. Or
right,
you can build something really small that works really well to test. In fact, we have the MVP already. It's like scaling the MVP, right?
right,
This is not the future end platform of all energy. This is how do we take the MVP and deploy it everywhere in the
right,
next 5 years and not the next 15 years or 20 years that it would take to, build enough nuclear power plants or, all of those things that people debate about and debate about and debate about, like plan A, which we know will work and help us out a lot, we've got. So let's build that now.
you got it. It'll work. And we made up this sub theme called Thrive in Five, which I kind of like. And the idea is not only it's not like we're anti anything. It's just look, get it done. And the
Yeah.
cost of waiting, in terms of planetary damage or human damage, if you wait 20 years to get things going, I can't even describe the amount of damage that's going to happen. It's hard to describe. So, we've almost lost Canada this year to wildfires. It's crazy. So we can't wait 30 years to get going here. You couldn't put a dollar figure or a human cost figure on the cost of waiting. So let's not wait. Let's just do this right now. And the flip side of this, which is more joyful, is then it's done. I mean, I really believe that. Do this and then you're done. Go back to work, have fun. Global warming, check the box. And that would be such an amazing relief to all of humanity that they could turn their attention to some other set of problems instead of living in dread all the time. So I think it's time for us to be activists and responsible, do the easy thing, as hard as it may be, and
Yeah.
then do something else, get on with it.
One of the, for those who maybe are not like necessarily well versed in the energy space, there is a reason to focus specifically on energy, which is energy and electricity is the platform upon which we can decarbonize about 75% in the United States of total emissions, right?
Mhm.
And so while people are working on, manufacturing and agriculture and electrifying all of these spaces and buildings, commercial buildings, transportation, those are all parts of the ecosystem that are significant and that need to be electrified. But underlying that, the most important thing is you can electrify all the cars that you want, but everyone could have electric cars. It wouldn't matter at all if the system was not based on renewables. And the fastest way to do that.
Right, right, right. Yep. So that's the idea. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of interesting conversations late into the night about whether this is a good idea and if it is a good idea, how to do it. But it will also be the source of the Cto Design Challenge. And hopefully they can quickly move past the value of the simplicity of it and help us figure out how to actually get it done.
Yeah. All right. So
Exciting.
I want to one one other theme that I think we should talk about, and you've mentioned it briefly, but this is a big one that I think we're seeing. You're actually building on a day-to-day basis, but the impact of artificial intelligence to positively change medical outcomes, model Earth systems, and specifically because this is we've talked about the potential, the negative, all the bad things that are going on, but the point, one of the themes of this year's conference is being the see the moving away from the doom and gloom aspect, seeing the opportunity that we have in front of ourselves as far as what can we do about climate change, all of these things that are going on in the world, and moving into that, right? Helping people to see the opportunity of the moment
Mhm.
that we're in, because so much media and news content is focused on everything's terrible, everything's horrible, we're all going to die, everyone hates each other. And
That's worth.
so
Yeah, I don't like that.
so instead we're
Yeah.
going to talk about how the positive aspects of this, right?
Yep.
um how do you see the future of medicine evolving? We have, Lee Hood is coming to speak about
Yeah.
the transition from genomics to phenomics.
Yeah.
We've got,
Scientific new book. Yeah, that'll be great. Yep.
are there other aspects of the future of medicine that you think are underappreciated now?
Yes. Yes. I think that this is pretty cool, actually. If you look at the whole history of medicine, I don't have a lot of respect for, I do for the people, but not for the actual science. So, um, going back, from today backwards, you're looking at a lot of pill pushing, a lot of money, not so many people saved as people, as customers, and, a lot of problems and a lot of confusion, not very much information about who died from what or why. So it's not data driven.
Mm-hmm.
And this gigantic moment of pivot in medicine as we move from standard of care, which could kill you all day long if it's done improperly, to evidence based. Ooh, who thought of that word? Evidence based. What a shocking idea. Well, that's rare. To data driven, where everything is data driven. And that will change everything in medicine. So, on the left hand, that's the flow of the history of medicine, of healthcare. So, we're right in the middle of that right now. And on the right hand side, we've got the history of computing and of AI. And equally shocking and exciting is the changes that are happening there. So to have a shift in AI where we move in science from, I have a hunch, I wonder if it'll work.
Yeah.
That's all we've done until now. That's all we've done until now. I have a hunch, maybe it'll work. Into a new model, which is you're not allowed to have any hunches now, just data driven. And let the data provide the initial hypotheses for whatever you want to do. Radically different. Scientific method just got flipped. And so take those two trains of thought and collide the trains, and then you now have AI crossed with healthcare at a time when both are going through this gigantic pivot into being driven by data only, not by bias. And wow, it's like this year.
So
So
what does that mean for the average, like if I'm experiencing health issues, how will that affect me?
well, imagine, first of all, you've heard the term, and Larry Smarr, who will be with us again, helped coin the term precision medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that means that we know more and more about you personally before we give you the pill or before we give you whatever we're going to give you as a treatment. We might know more about your microbiome. We might know more about what you eat and drink every day. That's a shock. They don't teach that in medical school. And so, all these different things, which are very, very important to determining what your health state is from minute to minute, your
Mm-hmm.
circadian rhythms, which we'll have on stage with our son. So, a lot of stuff going on there that are deeply involved in your health and have had no presence whatsoever in diagnostics for you and then proper treatment for you personally. So personalized medicine itself is getting a lot of airtime, but hasn't gotten a lot of use yet. And it will get used. We will use your genome and how your genome expresses and all these things I just mentioned to understand, is this drug for cancer good for you? not for an average person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
So
personalized medicine. And then
it's
we're also discovering things that weren't discovered before. So just the drugs themselves. Until now, today in the industry, the hit rate for a new drug is less than 1 out of 10,000 tries. That's bad. And just as an example here, I am boasting, but a
wait,
pattern
what
which
is okay, back up. What is hit rate for those of us who are not medical?
from the beginning of identifying targets to be addressed in helping make you healthier
Mm-hmm.
for disease to the end point of getting into a market where you might be able to, as a patient, be able to benefit from it.
I see. So you're saying as new drugs are developed, only 1 in 10, what was
Of
the number?
10,000 or
One out of
less.
10,000 actually works.
Yep, and get to market. Yep.
Got it. Got it.
Now, what if you could do a higher number? 1 out of 1,000. That'd be
Mm-hmm.
good. Well, right now we're not done with our runs of taking things through human trials, but our numbers are in the 11 to 16% range. So we're already doing 10,000 times better than the industry. And again, it's because we don't do, hey, I got a hunch. We
And
don't
when
do
you
that.
say R, just to clarify for everyone else, you're talking about the pattern team.
I am. But I'm
Yeah.
also suggesting that the use of explainability will not be restricted only to us. There'll be more and more companies that discover ways of doing this, not lying about it or hinting at it, but really, really doing it. And when they do that, it'll have a gigantic effect on the effectiveness of drugs and the ability to be efficient in our production of new drugs and new discoveries compared to the old ways. These things are going to have a very large effect on human beings who are patients because they're not going to be the guinea pigs in the way that they have been until now.
Can you imagine? I was just thinking about this, but can you imagine going into your doctor's appointment and your doctor looks at your last, rather than being like, okay, I have 5 minutes, what's wrong with you? And here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to charge you $1,000 at the end of it. And your insurance will cover 100 of those dollars. Your
Yeah.
doctor looks at your all of your personal medical data for the last month or two, depending on the context of your illness
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is, and they can see exactly when your temperature changed. They can see exactly when your what your sleep patterns were, when they were disrupted, how they were disrupted. They can tell your heart rate and your blood pressure. They can prescribe you kind of like preventative care measures based on what they're seeing. They can see exactly what's going on in your body over time.
Close. Pretty close. Yep. Yep.
Look, pretty close. And when you combine that with what we're talking about now, which is an understanding of your personal genome and patterns and phenome and patterns in that, and how treatments have applied for people or other, beings with the same or similar biomarkers. It's just a complete revolution in the applicability and the usefulness of medical care.
It's true. But wait, there's more. Because, um, as you're aware, Pattern built a device which appears to be unique, using light to make a diagnosis of what you've got. So we built it for COVID. And with COVID, we could see with 2 drops of saliva, 3 seconds of test, using light, we could see through your sample and find the fingerprint of that disease using our engines. And so we're now expanding that to over 20 diseases. And the question will be, can you walk into your doctor's office, and in addition to what you just said, Berit, could you maybe for $5 true cost,
Fit in the
uh,
tube.
3 seconds, 2 drops of saliva, maybe we can look at 25 to 50 different alternative diseases as do you have those or not, and tell you in 3 seconds. That would be disruptive. And then you marry that with all the stuff you just said about, better drugs, better treatment, better understanding of your own personalized situation. And now you're really talking. Now there's a real revolution in medical care.
Well, with that,
With that, come to
I
fire.
think well, yeah, I mean, the point of this conversation really is to talk a little bit about, for those who haven't been to fire, understanding what kinds of things we do and get into, and why. And also, for those who maybe, are not going to be able to make it this year, to have an understanding of the kinds of patterns that we're seeing in the world, and how they might think about them. But I'm very excited, for those of you who will be there or who are able to make it. Please join us if you can. It's going to really be an incredible event. Um, and I'm very excited to be there in person with all of our incredible speakers, and it's going to be
I'm
it's going to be
too.
world changing.
For those folks who do see this and decide to come to fire, from what you've told them at the beginning, they'll understand you're not just coming passively so that have some popcorn and kind of watch the PR crap on stage. You're going to see things which you'll want to be part of.
Yeah.
You're going to meet who you really wanted to meet. You become friends with folks you never dreamed you could be friends with. They're going to do things that really matter, and it'll be like the high point of your year. So it's something life changing and really exciting. And so, if any of these things we just talked about are interesting to people who are listening or watching, um, here's your shot. Here's your shot. Be part of it.
Sign up. We'll include the link, to the fire registration website below, as well as a special discount code for podcast viewers.
Cool.
If you'd like to sign up, you can do so using those two things. And if you'd like to get involved in the Cto design challenge in some other way, say you're not able to make it to the conference, or you want to be a part of it at the conference, you can send me an email. My email is Berit, Berit, at stratnews.com. We are currently recruiting participants. So if this is something that you're passionate about, you want to get involved in, how do we accelerate this energy transition? You're looking at the news and feeling hopeless. This is a great way to do it. It's a way to be a part of something that is very meaningful with a group of people who can actually do something about it. So we
Yep.
encourage you to reach out. All right, Mark.
Well,
Well, I will see you at the Future in Review conference.
I'll see you there. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you.